Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, yesterday, while American servicemen were killed in Afghanistan, it was time for NBC to celebrate a man who killed an ex-American serviceman, namely Ashli Babbitt, the person who was interviewed in a fawning, flattering way was Michael Byrd, whom the government did not identify as the killer, but he has come forward and said that, yeah, he is the one who did this. This has to be one of the most disgusting interviews that you've ever seen on television. This is a person who shot an unarmed woman who posed no threat to anyone, and he presents himself as a victim. He even cried. You know, everyone cries on TV these days, so he cried. He cried not for having snuffed out the life of a fellow human being. He cried because his family has had to endure insults. So he was feeling very sorry for himself. He asserted that he showed courage. He said, "I showed courage that day," and then said that he saved countless lives. But even as he told his story, it was quite interesting, because he said, "Well, we piled up all the furniture against the door, and then locked the door, piled up all this furniture. So when somebody went through that window in the door, I couldn't see anything because all the furniture was in the way. And so I shot her." Now, there's a real question here. Why the hell did you pile up a whole bunch of furniture against the door, which was, first of all, it's a fire hazard. You know, if you think that there's a crowd of people, then people could get trampled. I mean, it is somebody who's supposed to be involved in security, that is something very, very dangerous to do. And of course, if even what he says is true, that is because he couldn't see anything because of the furniture that was piled up, then even doubly his responsibility for having killed a person, because he couldn't see, out of his own stupidity, he wasn't unable to see what was going on. Oh, he said, because we know from the YouTube footage that there were police around Ashli Babbitt. And, well, I couldn't see it because all the furniture was piled up. So this is a quite extraordinary statement on his part, because then it may that be because of that furniture that might explain why these people were trying to break through that door and breaking the glass. They weren't posing any threat to the senators and congressmen, since none of them was armed. What the hell was this 5'2", 100-pound young woman going to do to anyone? I mean, it just had been precisely that was causing panic because this door had been bolted and the furniture was piled up outside. Either way, this is it was none of the points that one should make, because he was claiming that, well, I heard on radio that there were officers down, there were shots being fired. None of that happened. The poison gas was being used by the rioters. None of that. Every single thing that he said was a lie. And Lester Holt is one of these journalists who, by the mere fact of his existence, he gets an award. He gets an award every 48, 72 hours, because the more you exist, it's just that's it. You just get awarded for it exists. Yeah. What should we do today? Let's give an award to Lester Holt. Oh, good. So that's the function of Lester Holt. He's been around forever, contributed nothing whatever to journalism, and he typically didn't ask any probing question, didn't challenge him. The conclusion that I came away with is that this is a truly vile, disgusting human being, a coward, because he's a coward. I mean, he was physically scared. The whole idea that he was trying to save senators and congressmen is nothing. He was physically scared, and he just went for the gun and just shot without any thinking. So he's a coward, and I think psychotic. I mean, his behavior that day was just psychotic. So a truly vile, disgusting human being. Anyway, Peter, what's your take?
Lester Holt, I've always said he's just an avatar. He doesn't even strike me as really a person.
No,
okay?
I don't think so, no.
He's a very, very strange journalist, okay? Yes. As far as the shooter is concerned, well, he's the same guy that left a loaded Glock in the men's room, right? Okay, with the safety off, George.
Yeah.
Well, why did he still have his job?
Quite.
I mean, if you and I had done that, oh my God!
Criminal prosecution. You would be facing criminal prosecution.
That is prison. I mean, you don't get out of that.
Right.
You don't get out of that.
Right. Yeah.
And doubly so that he's some kind of police officer.
Right.
Yeah. How did he keep his job? It's extraordinary. That is a grade A felony.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And this is Washington, D.C., where, you're supposed to be very preoccupied with gun control. Well, apparently gun control ends when it comes to Capitol Police leaving their loaded guns in the men's room. Apparently that is there's no control there.
How do you leave a gun in a men's room? I just can't, okay, I don't want to go there. Okay. This was a complete whitewash. This is something that is abhorrent. My goodness. What about Ashli Babbitt? Is she ever going to get any kind of justice here? I guess not.
No, never. No. Because the DOJ said they're not going to prosecute. The Capitol Police said, "Oh, come back to work. No problem." I think it's going to be very hard for her family.
All right, George, I'm going to say what's on everyone's mind, and I'll get crushed for saying it. What if it was a white officer and it was a black Ashli Babbitt? I'm sorry, I have to say it. I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. Because it looks like there's a double standard here. I mean, in every police department in America, if you discharge your weapon, you must account for it. Was the person, the assailant, armed?
Right.
No.
Right.
Apparently, because of the furniture, you couldn't see your hands. Okay. And there were other law enforcement around her, behind her.
Right.
They didn't shoot her, did they?
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I mean. He's a cowardly person. Which again, which suggests that this is somebody who should never have been, a police officer. Somebody who is just so, I mean, his behavior, like we were talking about, leaving a gun behind in the men's room, and then just shooting, and even he was lying yesterday when he was saying, "Oh, I gave warnings. I gave, I warned her." That's not true. I mean, people have looked at that YouTube tape. There is no warning. He gave no warning at all. I just simply shot to kill. So that's why he's he's a psychotic person. But I was just thinking about what what the Justice Department said when they said that they weren't going to prosecute. I want to just quote this. It says, "The investigation revealed no evidence to establish that at the time the officer fired a single shot at Ms. Babbitt, the officer did not reasonably believe that it was necessary to do so in self-defense or in defense of members of Congress." Now, whenever somebody writes a sentence with double negatives, this person is lying. I mean, that's the function of double negatives, because it's very confusing. You can read and reread the same sentence with a double negative, and you still don't understand what that is trying to say. So it's done in this very evasive, lawyerly way. But of course, any police officer can say, who shoots any suspect, you can say, well, you can't rule out the possibility that he felt threatened. I mean, when we look at George Floyd, this was a 6'5" person, high as a kite on drugs, much stronger than the 4 police officers who were trying to subdue him. Why not say, they felt threatened? I mean, this was a big, strong guy who's on drugs. Yeah, we felt threatened. What else could we do?
All right, let's bring it to the ultimate extreme. Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy because he was afraid.
Yeah, of course he was.
For his life.
Yes. Yeah.
And Kennedy was in the way of the bullet.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's it.
Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Recall the Warren Commission, everyone. We solved it. Okay. This is an abomination of justice. I don't know. I mean, we're in different time zones. I mean, I just can't imagine what the reaction is here. I mean, I guess there's still like 500 people being held for the insurrection of January 6th. And this is how they deal with Ashli Babbitt.
That's right, exactly. So he's talking about shots being fired. The only shot fired was the shot you fired. That's it. There were no shots being fired. There were no police officers down. The things that he was saying yesterday to Lester Holt. Well, I heard the police officers were down. Shots were being fired. None. No one was down. No shots were fired.
Who told him?
Exactly. Who told him that? Yeah.
No, this is obviously someone of no moral fortitude whatsoever to lie like that, and I'm convinced that he is lying. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and he's given a free pass.
Right.
Okay, and of the 500 or so, are any of them getting a free pass? They didn't shoot anybody.
That's right, and you're talking about quite a number of them, incidentally, still kept in detention. Awaiting a trial, which who knows when that'll be. So in other words, they've now been 7 months in detention, held in solitary confinement, and no charges pending. And judges are happy just to sign off on this. Well, these people are so reprehensible. Yet they didn't shoot anyone. They didn't commit any violence. But my God, they're the wrong people. They're the wrong type of people. They have the wrong views about the world. Not this person. I mean, it goes back to why wasn't he, at the very least, fired for leaving his gun in the men's room? I mean, that's the minimum. Leave aside the criminal prosecution. The minimum, you're fired. You have no business being a police officer if you do that.
I still can't understand what he was doing in the men's room
with a loaded gun.
I mean, did he take it off himself and put it down to wash his hands or to do something else? I mean,
well, maybe.
A cell phone rang and then he decided to walk out. I mean, I'm trying to think of the scenario.
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe he was in the stall, pulled his pants down and the gun, and he put his, he took the gun out of his pocket while he was in the stall. I don't know. And then he forgot it back in the stall. I don't know. But that's the only thing that I can think of. Why?
That is the easiest, most acceptable, understood reason for being fired, not being able to handle your firearm.
Right.
Okay. And then he ends up being the only person to use a firearm during the riot, and he kills someone in cold blood.
Because let's imagine. I mean, suppose somebody had come into the men's room and started playing with that gun, and that person got seriously injured. I mean, wouldn't the Capitol Police been on the hook for that? I mean, in other words,
Oh yeah.
So that's a good reason to fire someone. You think, well, as a result of his negligence, we could have been on the hook for millions. And the police, Capitol Police Chief would have been fired. Right. I mean, it would have been a huge scandal, okay? Right. Because there are tens of millions of Americans that own arms and actually know how to handle them, okay? Right.
Because the people that know how to handle them don't shoot people usually. It's criminals and people that are negligent.
That's it, exactly. That's it. So this was a person, and there's a clear pattern in his conduct. That this is a person, he leaves this gun in the men's room, and then his first resort, because he feels somehow threatened by a 5'2" woman, is just to shoot her to kill without any warning or anything. I mean, that is a psychotic behavior.
But what accounts for 7 months of silence? If he did nothing wrong, then why didn't they say he did nothing wrong? Here he is. Ask him a couple. Why this cover up for 7 months if he didn't do anything wrong?
Right. Exactly. And that's the point. Why didn't the government release the name? They always release the name, a police officer. They don't consider, well, he might be subjected to intimidation and harassment. They still release the names the guy who shot, the one who he had that brilliant shot, when the young woman was about to be stabbed by another young woman, he shot her dead. That was a really good piece of marksmanship. But his name was released right away, and he was directly threatened right away by LeBron James. So everyone's name is released right away. I mean, the George Floyd police officers, all of their names were released right away. So it was amazing that in this case, silence for 7 months.
Oh, I'm sure when the Capitol Police found out it was this guy, of all guys, he's the guy that left his gun in the toilet. Oh God,
Right.
We got to think about how to spin this here. And what they did was hope it would go away.
Right.
And then Lester Holt drops it during the evacuation of Kabul. So convenient. So convenient.
Right.
No. It's no coincidence, George.
No, I don't think so.
They do this all on purpose, okay?
Yep.
I have to wonder when that interview was taped. I'd be just curious.
Yes.
I'd be curious.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's a nice kind of segue, nice way to change the subject. Oh, good. We can now talk about January the 6th. The whole thing was done as entirely in sympathy with him. He's the victim, not the person he shot dead. He's the victim.
The armed person is the victim. The unarmed person that was murdered is the culprit. Okay, I think we got that.
That's it.
Figured out. Okay.
And he's allowed to cry on camera. I mean, any self-respecting journalist who said, no, we're not going to have you blubbering on camera.
What they should have done? You know what they should have done, John? They should have brought Babbitt's husband and I think has a son. I'm not sure, but at least her husband, and sit in during that interview.
Right, exactly.
Have them sit there, have a round table.
Absolutely, that's it. I think that's exactly what any serious journalism would be about, which is okay. Do the interview. Then you do the interview with the husband and the family lawyer. So that's okay. So that'll be. Don't just give this guy just a nice 15-20 minutes of exoneration. I mean that's absolute disgrace. It was really just a shocking piece of quote journalism unquote.
Yeah, it's like Nuremberg, It's it was the war that made them commit the crime. It's not they started the war to commit crimes, because of the situation. I mean, everything's inverted. Everything is completely inverted.
Right. Yeah.
And her name is going to be remembered a long time, George. It's good because it's a third rail. It's a third rail, because when so many other people are going to be unjustly prosecuted, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm just another Ashli Babbitt," right? You don't care about my rights because you didn't care about hers.
That's right. No, that's right. And it's so stark. I mean, the idea that the people 7 months. I mean, 7 months, in lockup without having been prosecuted, and you're in solitary confinement for what? None of them has been charged with any violence. And then this guy, the only person who actually died out of the direct events of that day was Ashli Babbitt, killed by a police officer. No one else. All the stuff about Brian Sicknick and some guy who got a heart attack, or another person who he has some drug problems. None of them has anything to do with January the 6th. And then they say, well, some police officer committed suicide. Months and months later, we don't know why people commit suicide. I mean, the idea of trying to link it to January the 6th is a total fraud. The only person who died on January the 6th was Ashli Babbitt, and the only person who used deadly force on that day was Michael Byrd.
I could well imagine, George, someone that shot an unarmed person waiting trial, depending on the circumstances, could easily sit for 7 months in solitary confinement waiting for trial. But this person didn't, okay? He was exonerated on the day it happened, okay?
Yes.
They needed to sanitize the story, and they were going to look for a convenient time to drop it, okay? That's what this is all about. And people wonder why trusted institutions that are at all time low. Now they're just going to get lower, okay? This is the best way they could handle this. He's the victim.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, in much the same way, though that was even more horrible. Waco had the same kind of effect. I mean, they just said, hey, you killed whatever 85 people, and you just kind of brushed it under the carpet, as if these people's lives didn't matter. There was no one was reprimanded, no one was disciplined, no one went to prison. No one even lost their job, let alone go to prison.
There's still people that were involved in that catastrophe that are lying today, okay, about what happened.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Anyway, a very depressing note here.
Very, very depressive. It was a really disgusting piece of television.
Rest in peace, Ashli Babbitt, and I wish the best for her family that got getting no justice. And so, one thing that maybe we could hope, because of the American judicial system, there may be a civil suit. That would be maybe
right. That's what, but I don't know. The chances of their success. Once he's been given a clean bill of health by the Capitol Police and by the DOJ. I don't know. I hope there's a way of doing it, but I don't know.
Because it's wrong to let it sit the way it is. It's wrong.
Right.
All right, everybody, we're on Locals. I'm sorry to end on such a depressing note. We're on Locals, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Many of you saw our first super chat that we did on YouTube. It was really a lot of fun. George and I are going to try to institute a weekly.
Exactly, weekly. We're going to do one next week. Yeah,
and we've done a number.
We'll let you know when the next one will be. Yeah.
And we've done a number of Q&As. Very good questions. We're doing interviews with other people on the Locals platform, which is very interesting and very edifying.
Yeah.
The store is up, everybody's sleeping. I'll leave them alone. Oh, no.
The tip jar master.
That's right.
The Meister, the tip jar Meister.
Meister tip jar. And he knows it. Okay. Did I forget anything, George? Go ahead.
Well, I think no, that's there's the Gaggle store, lots of excellent products, including Buddy's image on mugs and so on. So there's that, and and the tip jar, whatever you're able to contribute is most appreciated. You've been very kind and very generous in your support, and we really rely on it. We don't have Jeff Bezos behind us, so we rely on fellow gagglers, and so we're very appreciative. And remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.